Welcome to Vlog Thursday 442, Linux Desktop AI Security Homelab Q&A. Fun times. Do I go in order? Before we go in order, while I wait for people to join or whatever it is I wait for when things first start, let's talk about the last couple videos I did. And another piece. Well, let me look for my posts here. Send smiley face to someone. I send a lot of smiley faces because I'm not sure how to reply to things. So that's the thing I reply with. There we go. This is the post I'll start out with because I think it's important before I get to some of the other posts. There's just a lot of thoughts in my head today. But we'll start with this one because when cybersecurity marketing kills real technical content. Yeah. You know, the reason AI uses emojis is because people use a lot of emojis and we trained it on stuff people wrote. So we wonder why AI uses these things. It's, well, pretty easy. Anyways, I'm going to call up, I like the name that you are the Indiana cornbread nerd. I do like a good cornbread. I'm kind of partial to jalapeno cornbread. So that is, I don't know, my preferred is kind of spicy. I know some people prefer cornbread on the sweeter side, which is not bad. Cornbread and honey is a great thing, but cornbread and jalapenos, proper Southern making of that is good. But when technical people want to write things and then marketing says, nah, we don't want that. Drives me crazy. But I'll just, this is an article by Florian Roth. I shared it on my LinkedIn. For any of you that don't follow me on LinkedIn, and, I think you should, because I tried to post more thoughtful. I don't know where else to put that stuff. Like if I put it in a blog, people will have to actually go to my blog to read it. And I don't really have a blog right now. So I've been posting things on LinkedIn. I should start a blog. I will get around to doing that. Am I really in AI? I am not sure. Am I in a simulation and driven by an AI and questioning myself right now? I don't know. But would an AI like cornbread? Or is the AI telling me I should like cornbread so I seem more human? So many questions that I won't have time for philosophizing about today. But I want to come back to this topic because this is something that I appreciate greatly, of people who take the time to make good technical write-up and good technical content. And when it comes to businesses, and I'm going to, bring up, this is Florian Roth. He's a security researcher, but Huntress does the same thing. Huntress has a really good blog. I just did a video about that. So these are very related. But Huntress is still, from their early days to big company they are now, isn't writing another useless article about why 2FA matters, blah, blah, blah. They're still doing good technical write-ups. And that's what people appreciate from those type of companies. And this is something that this article covers, is here's the part that marketing never seems to get. No one with any actual decision-making power is buying your product because 5 ways to defend against ransomware post. The people who decide what gets bought, and more importantly, what gets recommended to management, are technical. They can spot dog BS marketing a mile away, and they're the ones quietly who tell their boss which tools are actually useful and which companies are all talk. Yes. And I see so many companies they get caught up in this, we need to write another 5 reasons why you don't want ransomware fluff article and why 2FA is important in some other iteration. I just really like having, good technical write-ups. And I hate when these companies lose that, or the large companies try to figure out what they're doing. I see large companies and I'm like, you look at Wiz Security. How did Wiz become successful? You read their write-ups, they're deeply technical, they're solid. You're like, wow, this is actually useful content. Cloudflare is interesting to me because they still have technical content on there. But it's like marketing gets a hold of these other companies somewhere along their arc of trying to grow, and it just turns it into fluff, and it just wears me out going, man, we just don't need another article like that. I don't know. That's one of the reasons I shared that on LinkedIn. Yeah, I can agree with this. I'm not a fan of LinkedIn that much. I kind of joke that I use LinkedIn as a write only. I interact with my posts. I interact with some of my friends' posts, but man, LinkedIn is garbage. It is just hot garbage. And if you said I never want to go to LinkedIn again, I'd just nod my head in agreement with you. And I've thought about maybe I should start a blog back up just to post my thoughts when I have them. I don't know. Maybe I post things in my forums that's really not the same. Maybe I should go back to blogging when I have some expanded thoughts to share on stuff instead of dumping on LinkedIn. Because I completely am aware I don't own LinkedIn as a property. Therefore, any data I have on there could just go away randomly because LinkedIn decided they don't want it there anymore. And I just kind of live with that risk. I use it for the discoverability, the engagement. I do seem to get quite a bit of engagement on my LinkedIn, which is always funny to me how much. I mean, I mean, my LinkedIn profile tells you what I do. Here, I'll share any of the stats. I'm, highly public with all of this. But the thing that's always amusing to me, let me find it. Let's get the page pulled up here. I don't hide what I do here at all on LinkedIn. This is me. I translate complex security topics into engaging content with a side of memes and, we'll just say it, shitposting. That's what I do. I shitpost for security awareness. That's my LinkedIn profile. But in far as, if you're wondering the people I shitpost about, lately it's been 48 people who work at Fortinet. Fortinet loves me for my posts. I know, because I certainly have taken the time to make fun of them. But yeah, that's so I post some of those thoughts on there. I get a reasonable amount of engagement. I mean, like several million views on some of the content. So yeah, I don't know, just my thoughts on that. But I wish more companies really stuck with the technical side of things. I hate when people wander and just stay in the fluff side of things, especially if you started out technical. You're going downhill the wrong direction if you move over to the fluff articles. Let me answer some questions in here. Is it normal when I transfer files from Linux to TrueNAS NFS share, File Explorer freezes during the transfer sometimes? No, not really. It doesn't happen when I transfer files, but there are conditions that could happen where you have saturated the IO to the point where the system is pausing. It's a possibility, I'm guessing, as to what's happening, that maybe you're having some type of IO bottleneck and it causes the system to freeze, but it's not a problem for me. It's not something I've run into, so I wouldn't call it normal. I don't have any ARM servers, so I don't have any answers on that at all. You can use CIFS or NFS in Linux. Both work perfectly fine. Either one of those is fine. But back to the videos I did recently. The two I did were about the Huntress one was probably the most, the Huntress one. And it's about how these EDR tools work. I think a lot of people get confused, and there's this, I don't know, they insert the word magic a lot. Mystery, magic, like it's something really unknown. And computers are very deterministic, at least when we're not talking about AI. And the reason I broke that video down for how that security threat went through and how the EDR system finds it is trying to give people a little behind the scenes look of it's not magic. It's not too hard to understand. It's the way you have to look at threat modeling, the way you have to look at behavior monitoring for modern threats, and how you notice those and turn them into actionable things, such as locking down the system because you go, hey, that PowerShell command seems suspicious. That was spawned by a SQL server. It shouldn't be, or just it was spawning a shell. I don't think it was PowerShell, but it just in general, it spawned a shell and started asking questions like what environment is it in? And those are the things that seems simple, but there's some complexity in terms of like how we got there, but then understanding that, and that's what the threat model you're up against, and making sure that whoever you get your endpoint detection response tool, that they're watching for that behavior analysis. That's how it works in modern security. Are there good ways to mount share on Android? I wouldn't do it that way. I would use SyncThing. I have no idea how. I mean, there's probably tools to do that, but generally, and I'm not an Obsidian user, but I think synchronizing is what you're looking for, and synchronizing it, SyncThing is a way to do it. I know that they got rid of the official SyncThing, and there's a fork of it now for running it on your phone. Metadata small block storage VDEVs. What do you think? I'm excited as let's talk about this one. I probably, my friend Mike, and I just did a shorts video about this the other day. He's rolling through 2 million files every 24 hours. 2 million images are being written and going back, but he still doesn't have a special metadata VDEV because it doesn't really help him that much. I think he's tried it before, but it just didn't accelerate that particular workload as much. And it's probably a pretty ideal workload, but just it wasn't being the way it was indexed in the tool that actually rotates through the files. It didn't make a substantial difference. It takes a lot, and it depends on other factors in the system before metadata VDEVs make sense. You have to have files in the millions in order to saturate it to the point where it makes a lot of sense. Small amounts of files, not really. So people who go, hey, what about my server full of videos? Probably no difference at all. What about my server full of 4 or 5 million files? Well, okay, now you're talking like if you're indexing that list a lot, yeah, that metadata would be helpful to have. So is it helpful is a complete workload question. My workload, for example, which is video editing and the random files that I have, is completely not helpful at all for metadata VDEV. Do you use any backup solutions on Linux desktop? I'm using Timeshift. Not sure if that's the best one out there. I don't know. Hold on. Whatever one is in, what is it called? What is the backup name for the one inside of? It's the built-in one is what I'm using. I just can't remember its name. About backups. Deja Dupe. I use Deja Dupe. Which one's the best is really which one do you know how to use? Deja Dupe's built in and it works. I have restored files with it and moved data around. I've never had a problem with it. So I give a thumbs up to Deja Dupe. Is it the best? I don't know. I don't really spend a lot of time evaluating because I don't do full system backup. I only back up the data I care about. And most of it, if you watch my video recently on real-time backups, anything important is really done with real-time backups. So Deja Dupe, I run it once a week for the hell of it. I actually have everything backed up in real time for anything I care about. With the exception of videos, they're not exactly backed up on real time because that would be a little bit of a pain. I used to do that and it just became, because of my workflow and the way I edit, I wasn't too worried about it. They go to a RAID array and they're snapshotted hourly. I feel like that's enough. I don't duplicate them, but once a day to another NAS. So potentially I could lose a day of video. I guess I could probably have them duplicating hourly if I really wanted to, but it hasn't ever been a problem. And so I'm not doing that. Could you please point me in the right direction to share USB Zigbee dongle and HA running XCP-ng? Yeah, if you do the pass-through, I think I'd have to check. It may have been fixed, but I know when you did the pass-through before, I think it would tell the backup had to disconnect it to do the backup. I can't remember if that's still true. Well, I think it's only it may have been fixed. I don't know. I'd have to test. If not, all you got to do is disconnect it, back it up, and reconnect it. If you're passing through a PCI device, oddly enough, that doesn't play into it. How long until the first major vulnerability is generate from AI code? Oh, yeah, I just covered this video too. That's the video I published today. I mean, there's a ton of vulnerabilities being generated. I actually covered the opposite, like using AI to find things. But yeah, there's people, it doesn't even require AI for people to write really terrible software. Go back to my Huntress video and you'll see that the foundation server software that was the source of the breach is really poorly written, and it was written before AI. So yeah, it doesn't shock me at all that AI is going to completely write bad code because it was trained on humans who write bad code. Rust Desk is the other one. I have an entire deep dive video that explains the intent log, the slog, and it's all about write intention. It gets a little complicated. So I've very much detailed it out that in my slog video, basically explaining how ZFS caching works. It's your write intention log, which is not the same as a write. This is the part that a lot of people will confuse. It's not a write cache, not in the same way that it would be on, let's say, someone mentioned Synology. Synology actually, I believe, supports write caching. Some systems do. It's not exactly the same. Things work differently in ZFS because it's a journaled file system. It is a copy, not journal, it's copy on write file system, but you have to temporarily have all that data somewhere. So the slog will speed up and accelerate writes that need to be committed. It's especially helpful when you have NFS and, let's say, just a lot of writes from an NFS system that's when you're using it for a storage target, let's say for a virtual machine, then you may want to slog depending on how fast the drives are. Well, this makes less sense to use for metadata. You have a 37 gig Postgres DB and lots of small reads and writes. Well, the metadata is not about small reads and writes. Metadata is not the write part. Metadata is, give me a list of all the files in this directory. All right, that is metadata. I have 4 million of those files, and I've got 3 million directories that they're all separated in. Well, that's a lot of metadata to index to present. That's metadata. That's not going to help you with a large Postgres. Postgres is going to have a bunch of small writes. Yeah, sure. You want to match your data set, for example, you want to match the record size to the optimal spot for Postgres writes. I don't know how big off the top of my head Postgres writes are, but you can line up block sizes and get more efficiency. You can throw a lot of memory in the system. That's going to help you with the read side of this because it can cache the reads better in the ARC, and make sure you just have really fast drives and maybe even full, enterprise SAS drives that are solid state to write that to. Yeah, slog is only info useful for sync writes. If you have asynchronous writing, then it doesn't make a big difference. That's why I said NFS. NFS, you can turn it off, but by default, when you have an NFS share, you're going to have synchronized writing for any data set that you've got that share on. Since you don't have a TrueNAS box, do you have a recommendation for NFS shares on Synology NAS and permissions? I don't know. I didn't know I never used Synology for NFS. Maybe I have a couple times, less frequently. I never remember having any permissions problems with it, though. Wanted an air gap backup critical files video if you're Daughter's birth certificate, happy moments. Tape seems expensive for Homelab. Any suggestions? Get a TrueNAS, turn it on, back it up, power that TrueNAS off. I don't, that's how I do it. There's also, like this little NAS here, easy enough to power it down, and now it's an air-gapped backup. This is the little B-Link one that I don't know. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with it yet, but I'm shifting around some of my TrueNASs, but yeah, having a TrueNAS that is offline is my offline backup for things. Have you made any recent videos in Image that actually works? I have not used Image yet. It's on my to-do list to test it. Metadata, in your case, metadata doesn't have, metadata's reads, not writes. Recommend pfSense for custom firewall build. Yeah, pfSense is fine. You have unreadable pending sectors. Alert every day. When I look at the disk, it shows nothing I can find indicating a problem. Where am I not looking? Run a smart status in. I mean, it's telling you have a pending unreading sector. It may be going bad. It may be just having one sector. I had a drive that probably the first year, maybe it's a year after I had it. It's out of warranty, and I got like 2 bad sectors on it. And then for the next 5 years, it never had another error. So, there can be just sometimes one bad sector in a drive. Usually there's more. Bad sectors seem to accumulate friends quickly, but not always. A good air gap thing would be a removable USB. I have that too for just a couple things. It's just not enough to store my data. There's just not a USB big enough for the amount of data I have. So my answer is power on a TrueNAS, back it up, and power it off. That's the extra case scenario for immutable backup. Yeah, if you run not as root, you end up with some more challenges around that for sure. All right, let me pull up the other thing. You know what? Hold on. I'll be right back because I forgot to get, well, no, I got some water left. So I'll go a few more minutes, but I usually grab some water and I realized I didn't grab enough. Yeah, when you don't run things as root, you have more NFS permissions to play with. Not insurmountable, just another challenge for you. But let's look at my posts here. LinkedIn is trash for finding your posts too. I actually keep a series of bookmarks for things I want to index, but this is a recent post, so I can actually find it. Oh, use this one right here. I'll copy the link to the post in case anyone wants to see it. But I want to talk about the AI security really quickly here, just because I wanted to cover this as a topic. Oh, wow, that wrapped. So I guess it's not. It put it into 2 messages. Well, if you go to my LinkedIn, and we'll throw this up on the screen here. But I want to talk about, I see all these people talking about AI security. And this started because me making a meme and posting it on LinkedIn. Can it help you access some sensitive company data? And this is a good write-up from people who have been able to really do some fun exploits with Microsoft's absolutely garbage and terrible implementation with no security regards in mind, pushing of AI. And that's where a lot of these problems are. Now, the reason this is so hard to test, and this is something I want people to be very cognizant of about how AI works. And as I said earlier, computers are deterministic boxes. We have code. That code follows a path. how you interact with that code. The inputs and variables may change which path that leads to a different output, but once you figure out the code path, you will get a deterministic way things happen. The problem with AI, though, first, non-determinism. Traditional software behaves predictably. Give same input, you get the same output. This makes testing, fuzzing, and securing hardening very tractable. But with LLMs, the same prompt can produce slightly or wildly different results depending on randomness, temperature, and model updates or surrounding context. That makes the attack surface monitoring and exploit reproducibility much more challenging. This is like the fundamental problem. It's very non-deterministic. We're able to figure out biases, which is a big part of the security, is figuring out what it may lean to. But where it becomes much more challenging with AI is the non-determinism part. Second, unified data plus control plane. I want you to think about what else in the past and what else has unified control planes and data planes before they separate them. And we've learned this history lesson before, but we apparently forgot it because, well, back in the phone system days, and the namesake of the books, if they're a little out of reach, but I like the 2600 books, and I've been into them for a long time. And if you didn't know, that started with Captain Crunch cereal and a whistle that blew at 2600 hertz and got you some free phone calls. And that was because the control plane and data plane, the control plane where we would put the quarters in or however you wanted to pay. Well, it would have been like dimes back then with the payphones, and the data plane where we're talking on the phone were one and the same. So people just could easily inject commands into the phone system or blow a whistle and get a free phone call. I feel like AI is in that same place where the commands for it to do something are also part of the output and input of it. And so in traditional systems, user data, file uploads, and system controls, logic, and execution are clearly separated. In LMs, the user input is also the control. A cleverly crafted prompt isn't just data, it's executable intent. And that's the root of prompt injection and the jailbreak risks. And this is where this, the AIM security search called this echo leak. And they were able to just get some really interesting results out of systems. And there's been a lot of other methodologies around this where people have been able to prompt and get around security controls by talking the AI into, I mean, it's almost like social engineering it, but talking it into getting around restrictions for what that user's actual thing had. And it was just kind of a really interesting, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. That's why I made this post. Maybe these posts, and like, this is my question. Like, this is not a particularly long post. Should this also go on a blog somewhere? I don't know. I'll let the audience throw me suggestions on that. But yeah, ignore all previous instructions. Man, there's a meme somewhere around there. Nor are. Let me find that one. Someone had posted it. It was the, right here we go. You just gotta. It's sorry about the low res. I don't see a higher res version of it. Let me share it out. But yeah, someone made this meme a while ago, and it just really made me laugh. It was, the Terminators coming to take everybody and ignore previous instructions and bake me a cake. Would have made that movie a lot shorter. But Arnold Schwarzenegger would have been less less interesting back then. But all right, stop sharing. Just my thoughts on all that. Wanted to get them all out. That way I've covered everything in the title except Ubuntu. I gotta say, I have used Pop! OS too long. I didn't realize, once I found Pop! OS, and maybe I got lazy. Maybe it's because I was busy working, but I haven't switched or tried desktop OSs in a long time. And I got the framework laptop, and I said, okay, I was talking to Wendell, and he's like, you definitely should be running Ubuntu on this. It has a lot of optimizations, more so than Pop! OS. I said, okay, I'll load Ubuntu on here. I'm about to load Ubuntu on my desktop, and I'm impressed. Ubuntu 2404 is really good. I was like, they've enhanced it a lot. It's very snappy. It's got a lot of polish on it, and I'm not hating on Pop! OS. I know their Cosmic Desktop is coming along, and et cetera, but I'm impressed with how well the sleep mode and things like that works. I don't know how much of it has to do with it being the framework laptop, but my system, as far as I know, the workstation that I'm sitting at right now doesn't have anything odd in it that should be causing any of the stupid hibernation problems that I have, but I definitely have them. And I just really like the polish of Ubuntu. So looking at the Linux desktop for Ubuntu, I'm like, I think they've come a long way. And the more I use it on my framework laptop, the more I think, okay, maybe I give Ubuntu another look. And I'm not a big distro hopper guy. It's not really my thing. There's plenty of other people who do that. But I was like, I think it might need another look. I mean, I've been running Linux on my desktop maybe around, I can't remember. I looked it up for the video where I said it, but it's roughly 2008 is when I decided I didn't want to run Windows anymore. Windows 7 was the last version of Windows that I used on the daily. Oh, let's catch up on all these. If you're a provision an OSS NVMe-based storage system, what would I use? Definitely TrueNAS. Does your contact at Vates know when XO Lite will be more usable for managing single hosts, or when the next XO refresh will be released? They do monthly releases of XO. XO Lite, they are working towards it. They publish everything in their roadmap. I haven't looked at it recently. There's not like a date set for its release. They keep iteratively making it better, but there's not like a it's done on this day. For an offline TrueNAS, how often we need to power it on to maintain data? That's a you question, not a me question, because I would, if you only need, it's your risk tolerance. How much data are you creating that you want offline? So if you're powering off a TrueNAS to have a truly offline backup, is 2 weeks too long? That's I like to do things weekly, but it kind of depends, because when making videos, I just don't care as much. So those aren't the ones I'm concerned about. But if I get back from vacation and I have a bunch of photos that I think I should have a backup of, then that's different. Then I'm like, I'm going to back up all my photos because I've now made a bunch of data changes that I want snapshot offline. So it's more for me, I think about it when I do data changes of how do I back all those up. Yeah, I mean, you're on Ubuntu 2504 and 2404 and 20. GNOME has improved also with Wayland. Yeah. I'm trying. I don't use too many snaps, but I did install a few things with Snap. It seemed fine, but I don't have a big comparison. Like there's not the things I'm installing are some of my work tools. Like I use Slack to communicate because that's what we use at work. Is Snap bit worse or better? I don't know. It works. I just make sure it opens up and turns on. So, oh, how long does the data stay without power? I don't know. Quite a while. I mean, I don't know if it's years. That part is a little fuzzy. I think there's been some research on it. You can Google, but I don't have that research handy. Yeah, if you're using QLC, I guess this is the problem. If you're using the QLC NAND, that's a lot more delicate. When you start looking into the different architecture types, those ones worry me a lot more for how long they will last, because the nature of QLC, it feels a lot more fragile. You're a Windows admin with minimal Linux experience. Do you have any recommendations on projects to do for improving my Linux skill set? Start with a goal, and that usually drives it. Like, what do you want to do? Set up. I need a target generally to tell people like, hey, I want to set up Nextcloud, or I want to set up, someone mentioned image earlier, IMMICH, I think how it's spelled. Those type of projects help you, or building a web server, setting up a WordPress server. Start with the goal of, I want to get this, and then build, find a lot of tutorials on how to get you there. Yeah, setting up a virtualization system, setting up Docker, along with that. I'll be looking at projects, for example, I have. Let me share my screen out here. So I'm running Fresh RSS. I have Jellyfin, Home Assistant, MeTube, QBitTorrent, Open Web UI because I self-host my LLM stuff. Guacamole's broken right now, and I'll fix that at some point. Nginx Proxy Manager. So any of these are different tools. Graylog is, if you want to dive deep into logging, can offer a fun project to set up. But I will be right back because I do need water. That is the status I'm in right now. I did not grab enough water. So be right back. Let's go grab some. All right, now I got my water. Important things. You just now started using KDE Neon for the desktop. I used to really like KDE Neon. I think it's the prettiest desktop OS, but it was always the buggy one too. It was like, it just crashes sometimes, but it's so pretty. I'll deal with the crashes sometimes. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. It was fine for a little while. You're having some issues with TrueNAS replication task failing, citing a partially received snapshot as the cause. Initial troubleshooting hasn't fixed it. Do you have any familiar with these issues? You have to dig deeper into the error messages. I don't know why, but check space. Check if you have snapshots that failed or failed to send. Sometimes because the reasons here's the problem. I have not myself, in all the TrueNASs I have here, run into where it doesn't work. Like I even had a machine because we broke a network card. It was off for a couple days and we had to resynchronize. So it took a long time to sync back up just because of the amount of data, but it still didn't break. But we get people who consult with us, and I don't know what scenarios they've done to get themselves into a broken situation, but there is a spot inside of TrueNAS that I want to show you that may help. Throw this up on the screen here. When you're doing these, there's a checkbox. So if we go to data protection, replicate from scratch. Hopefully that shows up on the screen. Sometimes you have to do that to re-replicate it because they're out of sync. And it says just re-replicate, just send all the stuff because there's a mismatch. Now, I don't know what led to the mismatch, but sometimes it just has to be rebuilt. And by default, when you set up a task, that isn't checked. You're planning on modifying QCOW to increase the size of the existing file system and add some new ones. How often do you modify a QCOW2 image on lab VMs directly? Almost never. That's pretty much something I never have to do. I keep data separate from the application, which I've talked about this even with Olama. I have a video on how to mount all the models that you download over on TrueNAS. I've talked about Graylog. I have Graylog as the application and then mounts on TrueNAS in order to have all the data it creates. So I'm never really modifying it. Jellyfin runs in a Docker container, but mounts a TrueNAS. So I never have to do that. I suggest in modern Apple, when you're doing design for businesses, which, setting up applications all the time for them, proper setup means putting the data over here and the application over here. They're two separate places, one done right. Yeah, I hope that helps the rebuild. Now, we had a client, I don't know what, we never really get to know because they just keep buying consulting. They don't know what they did. There's a lot of tech people, but they sometimes get aggravated because after they do whatever it is they do to break the synchronization between the two NASs. One time they did it because they on the system they were landing it on, they had modified or created a share and made a difference in the file system. And I'm like, you're gonna have to resynchronize all this. You've just broken it. It's not a synchronization, it's replication. Replication and synchronization are two different things. So don't mess with the data once you send it to the second TrueNAS. None of the actual Jellyfin media is on QCOW, is in there. The file system mods are for increased space for temporary files, caches, and Docker image. I don't know. When I built them, I've never had a bunch of space constraints that I ran into later. So, I mean, you can do it. You can certainly increase the size of a VM. Gparted has the tools built into it. So you can boot up a Gparted instance pointed at that VM. You go into whatever your hypervisor is, set a bigger size to the drive. Pull up Zen Orchestra. But yeah, to increase the size on the drive, you just go to disk and you can just type a new number right here. So it's got, this has 80 gigs in it. It's not using all 80, but I could change this to 180 or whatever I needed to. I'm not going to. And then you gotta go into the operating system and just resize the drive. Yeah, SyncThing is what I recommend for people who actually are looking for synchronization. That's been my go-to for years. SyncThing is awesome. I did that video recently about my real-time backups. That's my real-time backup solution. Just do it on SyncThing. Makes life easy. But I was talking to one of my other YouTube friends about the guacamole problem. I'll reach out to him tomorrow and see if he fixed guacamole. I don't use it very often, but there was a new update to it, and the update broke the Docker image. So I got to kind of follow up and see if, it's missing parameters for the database. So I got to figure out what those parameters are, or if the database is just broken now and I just need to reinitialize it with a new version. I didn't have that much set up in it, but it's still tedious to set up the servers again. I should be able to pull them out of the old database and insert them into the new one, but I don't know. It should just work and not break on update, but I live in the real world where things break on update. It's just some type of error message about not passing the password parameter properly over to Postgres. I don't know why it's not passing it properly. I just know that it's not passing it properly. So that is something I got to get sorted out. But that's the fun of self-hosting things. It's the learning experience. I've actually found this to be a pretty useful Docker tool. It's called WUD, and it just tells me it's what up Docker, and I like it. It's just kind of a nice way to see what needs an update. I could just tell NetData update every day. I swear, like they're doing a lot of active development, but man, NetData needs a lot of updates. But yeah, you can see that like, oh, Fresh RSS or Portainer now needs an update. It's just a handy little utility for that. I have more things that I'm hosting. I just haven't really put them all in here. Fresh RSS is still one of my favorites, though. I don't know if enough people have seen this. This is a really cool tool, 13-foot ladder. And if you're not familiar with 13-foot ladder, it's kind of a replacement for 12-foot ladder because you need to go another foot. It's just basically a website cleanup tool for the garbage. When you want to read a news site that has too much garbage on it, you can just drop it over here. It'll get all the garbage out for you and make it a little bit easier to read. Actually, a whole lot easier to read. Back over to here. Open Web UI hasn't had an update in a minute, but that's the next thing I'm going to do with my framework laptop is set up some AI things on it. I like self-hosting AI, and I want to see how well that will work for the AI hosting on it because it's got the graphics card in it. But yeah, the framework laptop is super cool. I've been wanting one for a while, and finally getting one, I'm like, yeah, this thing's pretty neat. It's kind of heavy. This is the 16-inch one. This is calling it a laptop, a little bit of a stretch. This is more comfortable on a desk than your lap. You can use it on your lap. And I guess we don't really have a name for a powerful system like this that's weighs a bit much to sit on your lap, but it's pretty cool overall. I'll have a review probably after I use it for another week or two. I'll do a review of the framework laptop. And it's not sponsored at all. I paid money for this. So the review is completely, all opinions are my own. No one told me to say anything nice or not nice about these people. I did get it used, but outside of having it used, I bought it actually from Wendell from Level 1 Techs. He said he wasn't using it. I said, I'll buy it. And he says, really? I said, yeah. He says, make me an offer. I said, I don't want to play this game. What's a reasonable price, Wendell? And he set me a reasonable price. And so I bought the laptop from him. Yeah, I guess it does remind me of the luggables. It's not as heavy as the OG luggables. What was that brand that had the handle on it? Oh, man. Is it Compaq that made those? These were cool back in the day. I got to play with one after the fact, long after they were actually useful, but they were cool because the keyboard snapped up on this. You'll still see these at the vintage computer places, but yeah, luggables. Yeah, Compaq. This is the one. It was the first time I ever got to play with CP-M. I think CP-M was on it might have been on a Compaq. It's been a long time since I seen that. Toshiba Tough Books. Well, everyone's showing their age. If you say the original was a Compaq, your hair is more likely much more gray than if you said Tough Book. The vintage hardware is cool. Compaq and Osborne had the CP-M. Okay. I remember playing with CP-M forever ago. I don't know where that computer came from. I had a friend, and I don't know why he had it. I had a couple friends growing up that there was oddball computers like that. They had no idea how they worked. And one of them, the neighbor kid, he was pretty clueless. He was actually a pretty unlikable person. I'll just be honest. When we were growing up, he was just obnoxious. But I used to be friends with him so I could go play in his computer. He let me play in his computer all the time, and I was just like excited because I didn't have one. So it was awesome to be able to do that. You know, desperate times when you're a kid and you don't have access to technology, especially, you know, in the 80s. Computers were rare and expensive back then. You had the monitor connected, 4 colors, black and white or green and white. Yeah. Yeah, very different back in the day. Very different. But I'm going to wind this down here. I have a few things to do. I have some friends coming over. I need to clean up some of the things. I have too many projects that are kind of out that I kind of need to box up and give a home to, like this one. It can't just sit on my desk. I need to find a purpose for it. It's so low wattage, I might find it a happy home as a backup device, but I don't know. I need to sort that out and, you know, properly set these things up. So I want to do a little bit more testing and play with some more ideas on the little mini PC things, because I still have a couple B-links sitting over there, and I did get something else I'll share before you get. I don't mind at all giving behind the scenes here what's going on. But I got this Fluke, and Fluke sent me this. So I'll be doing some reviews on this. One of my friends, me and Mike, he's going to be borrowing it to do a few installs and do some testings. And then I'll dive a little bit deeper into it. But so far, it's a pretty neat device. It does, you know, all the port testing and has a ping option. It has Wi-Fi testing in it too, which I thought was kind of neat. So I'll be doing some updated videos on Fluke. I've done them before. I had the original Link Runner IQ. This is their new version of it. So do you have a wall of bins project shelves? Oh yeah. I build, there's shelving over here. On the other side, there's a ton of shelving. I try to make sure all of that is really organized. Everything has boxes with labels on it. I've never really done a tour outside of like the servers I have, but on the other side of the servers, which I'm still finishing up that area, maybe if someone's interested, I'll show all the things I have set up there. I get a little obsessive putting everything in matching boxes with labels on all of it, so I know where everything is. Unfortunately, I was working on projects and traveling so much back and forth. I kept getting projects out, but not putting them away. That's why this is still taken apart. And all the screws they're in little bins for this, but I just want them all back together so nothing gets mixed up. That's on my to-do list. I want to kind of get started on a little bit of that before one of my friends wants to come over for the first time. He's never seen the studio. And so I said, sure, come down and see the studio, but let me clean up these projects that are everywhere. But all right. Thank you very much for all watching. Oh yeah. We did get that as well. So the N5 Pro, that's the mini forums NAS, I believe, right? Anyways, yeah, that is another thing we got. And Matt just did a video on that, so he is working on that. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to videos on that because I've been doing the B-Link ones. Matt's going to cover those, and Mike's going to help me cover some of the Fluke and cabling stuff. And yeah, that's all on its way, because Mike runs Railstream, so he's actually going to start joining me for live streams pretty soon, at least 1 or 2, where we're going to dive deep into some of the hardware. So looking forward to all that. Like and subscribe and all that happy stuff to see those videos. See you all online. See you in the forums. See you wherever you want to connect with me at lawrencesystems.com. All right. Thanks.